This is the eHealth Radio Network, your source for health advice on demand. And now your host, Eric Michaels.
Thanks for joining us once again here on the eHealth Radio Network. This is your host, Eric Michaels. eHealth Radio gives you the most current health information, news, and advice featuring some of the leading innovators in healthcare and wellness who are changing healthcare as we know it. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. Today we're speaking with Mr. Jim Heaney, who has been teaching the practice of presence for over 20 years, encouraging people of all ages to incorporate the practice into all areas of all their lives, professional, relationships, sports, arts, health, and more for greater spiritual and physical well-being. He is the author of the new book called Choosing Presence, How to Access God's Peace and Release Fear, Anxiety, and Stress. And Mr. Heaney, thanks for joining us here today on eHealth Radio.
It's my pleasure.
And certainly do appreciate your time. So for starters, tell us, why did you actually write the book, Choosing Presence? Let's start there.
Well, what's happened in our society, unfortunately, is that we have so much stress going on now. Like right now in our society, we have far too many people suffering. And it's not only from the coronavirus, but from all the uncertainty we're facing, and which is causing us even more anxiety, fear, and stress. And what intensifies the anxiety and fear is the feeling of being alone and isolated. That is why being mindful of the peace and power of the present moment is so essential to our inner well-being. There is always peace in this moment, and our problem really is that we are rarely in this moment to experience God's peace. It's as though during these uncertain times and anxious times, we first have to identify where the anxiety originated. And our first reaction naturally is, well, it originates from the circumstances in our life, which is true, but it's not only the circumstances in our life, but how we react to them in our unconscious mind. In this case, we have fear. We're fearing what may happen, but we really don't know what's going to happen. Either does anyone else. And because the future is not real now. So the whole purpose of the book is to let everyone know they truly have a choice to come into the reality of the present moment. Because when we're in fear, fear is always in the future. And it causes us so much inner conflicts that we truly can't come out of it unless we bring ourselves into this present moment, where, like the practice of presence, is a spiritual practice. And it's from a Christian persuasion. And the whole core of it is to connect with God's spiritual energy through stillness, as he told us to do. And what most of us don't realize is that the biggest obstacle to our peace of mind is actually our mind. I'll give you an example. The National Science Foundation, okay? They tell us through their studies that the average person thinks up to 60,000 thoughts a day. Now, that's bad enough, but of those 60,000 thoughts, 80% are negative, and 95% of those thoughts are exactly the same repetitive thoughts that we had the day before. That's a huge obstacle, and once we realize through a practice of presence that we're creating all this inner fear and conflicts. Another study from Cornell University about worrying, 85% of everything we worry about never happen. That's unbelievable. At the same time, it never happens. It is the main cause of our anxiety, our stress, our tension, and causes us exhaustion not only in our body, but in our mind. So 85% never happen, but we're going through the emotional and physical stress of 100% of our worries. So what the practice of presence does is make this reality very clear to us as we bring stillness in and we're grounded in the present moment. And what happens is we realize we do have a choice, okay? We can stay and create interfering conflicts, or we get into the freedom of the present moment. And that's what makes it so powerful.
Now, Mr. Heaney, we're certainly living in turbulent times, and in this time frame where people are stressed and anxious more than ever, how does someone choose presence over being stressed and anxious?
Well, I'll tell you what makes the book unique. We don't only talk about presence, the importance in our life, okay, and how beneficial it is for us to be present. We actually show you how to do it. In the book, I've also made a free app. It's called Practicing Presence a Christian Way. Now, the free app walks a person through it step by step, how to do it on a daily basis. It makes doing the practice very easy. And once you start doing the practice, what happens to us is that we realize all this noise going on in our head. And when we bring in presence, it slows down to the point where it doesn't interfere with our presence. And once we realize we can connect with that power, we're going to continue to do it for one simple reason. There's no inner freedom without being still inside. And that's the whole core of practicing presence a Christian way.
Now, Mr. Heaney, taking that even further, how does the practice of presence stop our anxiety and stress from taking us over with negative emotions and reactions, especially now?
Oh, absolutely. And I'll tell you why. Think about this. Whenever we're unconscious, okay, we call unconscious. When I mean unconscious is we are here now, our body. But our mind so often is thinking or obsessing about something that did happen, or it's thinking or obsessing about something that might happen. We are out of reality. And once we realize that through the practice of presence, that all starts to change. It's the beginning of the end of self-created inner negativity, which brings about all our negative emotions and all our negative reactions. I'll give you an example. If we asked ourselves, okay, anytime I've had anxiety, stress, worry, lack of self-esteem, and I said to myself, am I in this present moment? 100% of the time, the answer will be no. 100% of the time. Now, if at the same time, then we ask ourselves, any time that I've felt, okay, freedom inside, I felt calm, I felt just a sense of inner positive energy, peace, joy, love. And if we ask ourselves, was I present in that moment? 100% of the time, the answer is yes. And I think what makes presence so powerful is the peace that we experience when we become still. And what's so important about it is it's something that we can't create, and it's something that we can't control. It's only something we can be present to. And when we bring in that stillness, guess what? We cannot create anxiety, stress, or fear in the present moment because it doesn't exist in the present moment. Our negative ego has no control over us because we are grounded in the reality of this moment now.
Mr. Heaney, another question for you. What are the unique applications for the practice of presence in today's polarized society?
Well, number one, okay, when we talk about practicing presence, we can't practice presence, okay? We can't actually bring in stillness and experience the peace and power of the present moment if we have resentments toward anyone else. We can't bring it in if we have anger toward anyone else. So at the bottom, at the foundation of it is if God forgives us and all our weaknesses, we in turn have to forgive everyone else and all their weaknesses. We are obliged, as we practice presence, to respect everyone as a brother and sister because we are all connected spiritually. And you cannot hurt someone who you're connected to. And that's what teaches us. It's the practice itself teaches us through the inner calm and peace we experience, as Jesus told us. Be still, as Jesus told us, I leave you peace, my peace I give you. It's a peace you cannot find in the world. And God told us in Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. What we fail to realize, when God told us that, it wasn't a suggestion, it was a command. And when we actually do the practice, it's the influence of his peace that actually changes us from the inside. And that's why we made the app. We made the app so anyone can do it, and they can do it with far less effort or far less worry about doing it right. It walks you right through it and gives us an hourly reminder to just take 3 simple breaths and ground us every hour. In the short period of time, I can say this. Anyone who actually just does the practice, the very first day you do it, and you follow what the app says, which is simple, you will say to yourself at the end of the day, this was a better day than yesterday. Now, you do it for a month, you're going to say, this really works. Now, you do it for 3 months, you'll say to yourself, this is really powerful, and it's a power I cannot connect to when I'm in my unconscious mind, living through memory or anticipation. And that's what makes it so powerful. It does exactly what God told us it was going to do, and exactly what Jesus told us it was going to do.
Today we are with Jim Heaney, the author of the new book called Choosing Presence, How to Access God's Peace and Release Fear and Anxiety and Stress. He's joined us here today on eHealth Radio's Health News and Stress Management channels, a part of the eHealth Radio Network. Now, continuing on, what is the difference between meditation, as we always hear about meditation today especially, and mindfulness versus the practice of presence?
See, the difference is this. Now, if you ask 10 people who meditate, okay, why are you meditating, okay? And it probably is going to be beneficial for the whole 10 people. But they have 10 different answers usually of why they're meditating. What the practice of presence is, it's grounded in Christian belief, and there is one foundational goal. That is connecting with God's spiritual energy, which has the power to change us from the inside for 2 reasons. It's the peace we experience, and it humbles us as we practice it for one simple reason. We truly realize we cannot do anything meaningful in our life unless we stop all the inner negativity, unless we stop all the inner noise. And it's the power and the peace of the present moment that allows us to do that. It's not what we do. It's what's being done to us when we bring in stillness.
I certainly do appreciate your input and perspective there on that as well. What do you say to the person that says they don't have time to practice presence?
Here's what I say. I've been meditating, okay, practicing presence for about 23 years. Now, 15 years ago, I went from practicing presence to making presence primary in my life, meaning that I knew I had to not only do a morning practice, but I had to ground myself throughout the day. And grounding myself only means taking 3 conscious breaths with the right intention, and the right intention is connect with God's spiritual energy. It takes about 30 seconds. You can do it anytime. And it doesn't matter if you're in your car, if you're at work, if you're with people, you can do it anywhere. It does not interfere with anything. And the morning practice is 20 minutes. Look, we have 200 people working for us. I've been a busy guy my entire life. Now my kids run our business, the day-to-day running of our business, and they do an excellent job. But I've been busy always. And the times over all these years, whenever I say to myself, and I've had plenty of times, meetings all day, I had to meet someone at lunch, dinner, and I say, I don't really have time to practice presence now. And whenever I say that to myself, I say this afterward. What I'm really saying to myself is, I don't have time to stop all the anxiety and inner fear and conflicts I'm going to create when I'm unconscious. Presence keeps me in that space where the whole, as we practice it, what happens is we inner condition ourselves. When we inner condition ourselves, we get very, very aware of what's going on inside of us, how I feel inside. And when we notice ourselves getting into more negativity, we know exactly how to stop it. So the gift is that when we practice presence, number one, we know exactly why we're at peace. And number two, we know when we're not at peace, why we are not at peace. And most important, we know how to come back to peace through the practice of presence. It's always there. God's presence is always, as Carl Jung said, bidden or not bidden, God is present.
Certainly appreciate your visit with us here today, Mr. Heaney. Certainly timely as well per the topic. Now, tell us about the free companion app that you developed, Practicing Presence a Christian Way. Touch on some of the key factors there.
Yeah. Now, the reason the app, what makes the app so unique, in my opinion, is, well, not in my opinion. I mean, there's 100 people that just have told me themselves how much benefit they have from the app and how much easier it is to practice presence. I knew the first thing because I've been teaching it and practicing it again for 20 years, but after you do that for so long, what you realize is there's always a resistance to change, okay? And without the app, people might listen to what I'm saying, and they might say, that's really interesting information, which is knowledge about presence is useless. It's because presence isn't about knowing something. It's about actually doing it. That's what actually teaches us. So we made the app so a person can start in the morning. They can do a 10-minute, a 15-minute, 20-minute, or longer practice of presence. And then every hour, it has a reminder, practice presence, and it gives you the what your intention is. And the intention is always the same. I'm connecting with God's spiritual energy. And when you do that consistently, within a short period of time, no one has to tell you it works. You'll know yourself that this makes a difference when I actually practice it. And we also have 3 questions that we recommend you ask once a day, at least, or sometimes more, depending. And those 3 questions sort of gives us an idea of how we're doing spiritually. Because everyone's busy. The first thing that people do when they start practicing presence is, first thing they'll say is, well, I don't have the time, okay? So the app makes it much easier because now it breaks down the resistance. And when you break down the resistance, now you're focusing on the benefit because you're actually doing it. And that's, as I said before, it's not so much what we're doing. It's what God is doing to us when we bring in stillness.
Mr. Heaney, really appreciate your visit with us once again. And also, I'm sure listeners want to know how they can connect with you and get more information. Where's the best place online to get further information?
Well, there's I have a Facebook page, Jim Heaney Choosing Presence. The book also is actually on Amazon, too. And you can download the free app on your iPhone or on your Android phone.
And, of course, we'll leave links within the show notes of this broadcast to be of further help. Again, Mr. Heaney, all the best, and thanks for joining us here today on eHealth Radio.
Okay, thank you.
And you're more than welcome. We've been speaking with Mr. Jim Heaney, the author of a new book called Choosing Presence, How to Access God's Peace and Release Fear, Anxiety, and Stress. And this book can be found on Amazon.com. And again, this has been your host, Eric Michaels, and we do thank you for your continued support of the eHealth Radio Network. Join us again soon for another episode that will help further expand your knowledge on those things that are important to your health and wellness. For more eHealth Radio reports, we invite you to visit our main radio channel site at eHealthRadioNetwork.com. And as always, we do thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the eHealth Radio Network. For more information or to subscribe to this podcast, visit eHealthRadioNetwork.com.